Welcome to Direct and Current, an audio broadcast presented by Electrical Business Magazine. I'm Anthony Capkun. At the end of April 2020, we were just over 1 month into a national lockdown due to COVID-19. Emergency health measures were enacted, construction was severely curtailed in some jurisdictions, in others it ceased altogether. The economy was shutting down. Yet electricians had been deemed essential in most jurisdictions, and by extension, their distributors. So I gathered together a panel of electrical distributors from one coast to the other to learn how the pandemic was affecting their operations and their ability to serve their customers. This is part 1 of 2 of that discussion. In part 2, I asked my panelists what pandemic-related changes, lessons learned, and the like will persist when the crisis eventually passes and we get to our new normal. With that, let's get on with part 1. I'd like to start with the question and actually sort of set the stage, if you will, that electricians have been deemed essential in most jurisdictions. So how have you adjusted your operations against the backdrop of possible stay-at-home orders, social distancing, and the like? Michael Gross, how about we start with you?
It's unprecedented times here, and it is really about how do you make sure that you protect your team and really first and foremost your own people, and what can you do there to make sure that everybody operates in a safe and healthy mode. So what we have done is we have closed. We're open for business, but we have closed the counters for all kinds of traffic. We got pickup schedules arranged. We have here my Wesco.ca. Customers can dial in or can call in or can pre-order, and it's curbside pickup. So that's really, and that was mainly here to really protect our own teams and as well as our customers.
Now, Jason, same question to you. So, how has Graybar Canada adjusted its operations?
Sure, like Wesco, we've got curbside pickup across the country now, and I think it was we kind of refer back to Friday the 13th when all this really started, and I think it was pretty amazing across the industry how the consistency within that first week and a half, everyone sort of got in tow and did a lot of the same things. So we had changed a number of things, and the first, I guess, priority of the gate was to look after our employees and our customers, and the big concern that week was just the panic and the unknown about the virus, and people were concerned about their health. And we had a varying degree of I guess, feedback from our employees. Some of them wanted to be home and safe. Others were more than willing to be here. So, we took it and changed a lot of our processes. The curbside pickup was one of them. We sort of reduced access to our buildings to employees only, which, once we did that and got through that point, that seemed to be the settling point for our folks internally. And since then, we've gotten a lot of our staff, about 40 or 45% are working remotely right now, so that we can have those social distancing requirements within the branches where we still need people handling the operations of our business. And then, over the last couple of weeks, we really spent a lot of time as an organization trying to learn how to manage a remote workforce. It's a little bit different from the traditional way that we run our business, and so we're consistently trying to figure out ways. And a big part of it is obviously communication and staying in touch with the teams that are out there. So all of our sales leadership are spending a lot of time connecting with the teams and using the technology that's out there today. I think if we were in this position 5 or 10 years ago, the industry and really the economy overall, I think would be in a lot rougher shape without the technology that we have available to us today. So I feel like we're fairly fortunate that way.
Well, thank you for that, Jason. Let me jump over to the other coast where Tim Horsman is waiting patiently. Same question to you, Tim. How have operations changed at E.B. Horsman Son?
It's been a very fluid environment and somewhat unnerving, no question. I've been most impressed with the team as they've had to pivot, and they did that really, immediately as the pandemic and information related kind of evolved. Health and safety, as with Jason and the whole channel, was paramount, and we needed to make sure our not just our customers and suppliers and employees were safe, but also, safety in the community in general, and that we were being a good corporate citizen and, just protecting and living by the standards that were being set by an evolving public health authority. So, in our organization, we had, and I feel very fortunate, we have a business continuity committee that runs. They have a monthly meeting anyways. The interesting thing and learning was that we had always been running that committee with the kind of field of vision being around some kind of natural disaster, a tsunami or an earthquake, maybe a disruption in a cut fiber line or a gas explosion that cut off a piece of the business. We had never really contemplated a larger full-scale adjustment. But much of what we did with that business continuity planning, applied, and we were really able to quickly pivot, which was special. The team almost immediately set up subcommittees. One which was a branch operational kind of customer experience task force that was tasked with looking at how we were serving customers and supply chain couriers that were coming and going, and the other end of the spectrum, that unified kind of sales and marketing digitalization plan. So our construction market has continued. So we were fortunate that we got to continue to serve customers, unlike some of the other areas across the country. So yeah, those modifications, curbside continues, focus on remote work and through phones and email, e-commerce tools. So now we're in the phase, and I use the language in the company, respond, recover, and thrive. Our initial response and the way that we adjusted our workforce, enabling remote work almost instantaneously was great. Health and safety, how we're going to now re-enter the market is the interesting part. And then the team is really tasked with okay, this is a fluid environment. We're going to reopen. The restrictions are going to be relaxed, but there is a really high probability that we'll have to have a fallback position. So we want to think about recovery and long term, but we're still in the phase where the reality is we're months or longer maybe away from a vaccine. So what's our new normal, and how do we find it? So we're focusing on the things we can control, and it's been an interesting experience.
Oh, interesting. Definitely. I think you've summed everything up quite nicely just with that one word. Now, keeping out west, I'd like to turn to Greg. Can I have you weigh in?
It affected every part of our business, and I think even from our executive team to the first thing for us was that we had to implement all of a sudden daily COVID updates. Luckily, we've removed those from daily now to just weekly, but that was the first thing that we looked at for our own changing our daily way of life. For our branches, one of the things that differed from us was the fact that we actually left our counters open. What we did was we were lucky enough in most of our buildings to have enough physical space where we did things like remove gondolas with product, we removed marketing displays, we removed a lot of things to create a larger physical space within our counters so that we could look after the health of our employees, but also the health of the customers that actually entered our buildings. We did other things like limit access to areas in our building that normally would have access to customers prior to that as well. They were kind of the big things. From a health and safety perspective, I think one thing that we did initially was we looked at our most vulnerable part of our staff, and just based on what the government had talked about in regards to the age bracket, we had certain individuals that they were the first ones that we gave options to work from home. A lot of them decided that they didn't want to. They wanted to stay within the buildings, but like everybody else, I think we reduced our in-office workforce in some cases as much as maybe 40%, and in some cases maybe a little bit less.
Oh, very good. Thank you. There was a little bit of audio overlapping yours at the end there, but but I did get it. Thank you for that, Greg. Let me turn to Roger, who's been also sitting patiently there. So, Roger, how has Rexel Canada and its brands altered its operations in the face of this crisis?
Very similar to everything that's really been covered by others. We had to certainly shut down the counter from traffic, and it really depended on the market we were in. Some of the other actions we took, but one of the things we did do that I hasn't really been talked about is our DCs across Canada. We had to really change the way we operate those. Certainly, just from a flow of people through them, from truck drivers coming in from either couriers or transportation companies, and how we handled that, to our own people, which obviously, in some cases, social distancing in receiving areas and shipping areas can be challenging. Those areas tend to be kind of clustered together on purpose, and workstations also clustered together. So we had to spread some of that out. We did it within our DCs. We've separated shifts. So rather than losing an entire DC worth of employees, if something was, tragically to happen, which well, thank goodness it didn't, was we would, by shifting into two shifts, a cleaning and cleansing period for sanitizing in between them, really reduced our risk on DCs. So that worked well. It caused us to certainly change and the way we did a lot of that work, but it also allowed us to make sure, as others have said, first and foremost was employee safety, and certainly we didn't want somebody either bringing the illness into the workforce or taking it home with them, even worse. So that worked very well, and but did require kind of opening that emergency preparedness plan and figuring out how we were going to do that. And to Tim's point, we had plans created, but never around a pandemic. I don't think any of us ever dreamt that up. So I guess we'll be rewriting the book to include pandemics now. So.
Very good. You just took the words out of my mouth. For those who even have an emergency preparedness plan, I imagine they'll be tweaking it over the coming days. Let me now turn to Cliff. Cliff, so how at Franklin Empire, how has the crisis changed your operations?
If I'm correct, I think it's Plato who was credited with necessity as the mother of invention. I understand that better today than I ever did before. Like the others, we followed the same path very quickly. We went from, I think it was a Thursday or a Friday, from having nobody in our company working from home. By the following Tuesday, we had 80% of our staff working from home. Technology was a huge factor. We found tools that we already had that we never really used before or had to implement. Quebec led the country with closure of construction sites. So unfortunately, we got our feet wet there. The closure in Quebec was pretty devastating for our business. It represents 50% of our revenue in that province. Ontario a little less so, but Ontario followed 2 weeks later. We managed to keep everybody busy. Thankfully, our industrial side of the business is actually quite healthy. A lot of our industrial customers are essential businesses. They're in food production, pharmaceuticals, and they've really kept us busy. A little bit of construction. Some of the job sites we service are essential types of jobs, but like everyone else, it's a brand new experience, and we've thankfully adapted very quickly. And I'm impressed with the whole industry of how quickly we've been able to adapt and keep things going and keep customer service.
No, it's definitely been something interesting and exciting to watch, just, being in the wings. Let me turn now to Mr. Tim MacDonald. Same question to you, my friend.
Good afternoon, Anthony. Great to see all of you there. I was feeling a lot less anxious today until Tim Horsman listed off all of the other disasters that might befall us. So now I may go back to sleepless nights for a little bit. But seriously, our business in the last month, I think a month ago, we were just 2 weeks into it, and there was a lot of anxiety amongst supply people, our customers, and people hadn't really landed in a comfortable space yet. We were figuring it out. But since then, we have been able to transform our business, much like other people have talked about. I say internally that we've moved past surviving and we're into thriving. Someone else had mentioned that earlier, and I think I give a lot of credit to the resilience of our customers and our own people to try to figure out how to keep our supply chain going and jobs that are going, having them to continue to go. We, like others, moved people who it made sense for them to work from home. We were able to shift that. Our distribution center is still operating, but we're trying to be very conscious of safe distances and all those things. Although it was unnerving, I have to say that, products coming and going, and you hear reports about how long the virus could live on a package. And so those things, we're still trying to do the best we can, but it's an uncertain environment. Our Ideal Supply branch is closed early in the process to non-Ideal Supply people, but between inside and outside, our customers figured it out through the telephone, through emailing orders, and the kind of unintended outcome of all this is our e-commerce traffic is twice the unique users and twice the volume that it was a few months ago. So people who were slow adopters to e-commerce, I think this has been the catalyst to them learning how to use it in the same way that all of us are perhaps using WebEx and Zoom and all these things more than we would have a few months ago. So I think in general that our company and the industry is making lemonade out of lemons. And one of the things that's been gratifying to me is to see how we've been able to put competition to the side a little bit and learn from each other. And there are people on this call that I've been able to communicate with discreetly and say, what are you doing? And here's what we're doing. And we've learned so much from the industry and other industries around us, whether it be building supply or plumbing, because we're all trying to do the same thing, keep our businesses operating and keep our customers' businesses operating. So I think our business will be very different when we come out the other end, but for now, it's also very different.
So then there is also some lemonade to be had with the lemons. Let me just get to my last two patient panelists for this first question. And Elaine, we've got your audio all sorted. You're good to go. Let's go to you now. How have things changed at Gerrie?
So probably not much different than everyone who's gone before us. And I think everyone has taken those great steps that have helped make sure all of our employees, as well as our communities and our customers, are kept safe. And I think it's pretty commendable for those who have closed their counters and made those tougher decisions early on and were pioneers. I think that's really great. And we're really very caring industry that whether it's caring for our people, caring for our customers, caring for our vendors, really that seems to be the beautiful thing about this is it's people first, and then it's how do we keep everyone up and running. Like everyone else, the week of March 16th, we deployed anyone who could work remotely, whether they had the technology capability and had a role that could be done from working from home. And I have to really commend our IT department to making us really ready for this. Everything that they had, the foundation they had put in place in our technology, everything from the laptops, the VPNs, the Skype for Business, the Teams, etc., Microsoft Teams, mobile, etc. And really we were able, and I'm sure like everyone, able to make a decision one day and everyone's working remotely the next day, and really very seamlessly. And whoever mentioned it before, 10 years ago, that could not have happened. And so it's pretty amazing what technology has come to today that we could really make that happen. We too have curbside pickup and contactless receiving. contactless delivery, our distribution centers. Everyone has homemade masks. We've got our Amy masks, and other people have provided some. We have face shields for anyone who wants them. Face shields for our drivers, for our warehouse folks. Lots of hand sanitizer and disposable gloves, etc. So everyone's well spaced out and I think pretty comfortable with all the steps. And we formed a pandemic preparedness committee mid-March, around the 13th, and we started getting together as an executive, our third generation, director of IT, director of HR, automation, and branch representative to start talking and meeting on a regular basis. And what I really liked about our approach there was we didn't get baked into an idea or a strategy. So what was decided on one day could be exactly the opposite the next day, which I think really helped us being able to pivot so quickly and change our mind, be comfortable with changing our mind for making the new right decision. And based on, the new things that we learned through the government, whether it was the Prime Minister or the Premier's offices or the World Health Organization. So I think being able to adapt and adjust really quickly is really what helped us in these days so far. And of course, we mandated the week of the 16th, March 16th, that no one enters our buildings except employees. It is great that we're now getting all of us quite comfortable with the technologies that we have, whether it's Skype for Business videos or Teams videos or Zoom or online training. And it's just becoming a bit of a way of life that it's great that everyone's getting comfortable with it. And even Dad was able to do a Skype call, Skype for Business video call. So that's pretty good. And really the communications are, I think, really what's holding all of us together and all our companies and our people feeling comfortable is that constant communication that I hear others are doing. And we, of course, are doing it as well. We're still meeting daily as a pandemic team after we listen to the Prime Minister and the Premier. And then we have a manager call at the end of every day. And then our director of HR sends a communication out to all the employees every night as a bit of an update. But as well, our managers are connecting with their teams every Monday morning over a virtual coffee. And they're doing this to try and help make sure everyone still feels connected to their team members, because when you've worked all your career in a department with people or a room full of people, or just plain interacting with anywhere from 5 to 50 people, and now you're working in a room by yourself, it's a bit of an adjustment. So keeping everyone at least once a week connected with the team, we found has been really helpful too.
Oh, definitely. Even though I don't go out often for groceries, just seeing perfect strangers across the parking lot makes me a little happier. Now, Mathieu, you've got the last word on this subject. Hopefully, with having all the panelists in front of you, they've left you something to add. But Mathieu, how have things changed at Electrimat?
Yes, in fact, a lot of things have been said, but on our side, we realized that we came back from far. Because prior to the crisis, we had no employee working from home. No one was using video conferencing. And now 90% of our employees are working from home, and we enjoy a lot using Zoom and Teams and those platforms. Regarding social distancing, the challenge is in the warehouse team. Because we presently have no volume, it's quite simple. But we are organizing our team so we'll be able to be productive enough to answer the increase of volume in the next week while respecting social distancing. The last thing we want as a society is another closure of the economy because of non-respect of sanitary measures.
No, that's a good point. Very good point. Okay, I think he was done. Okay, excellent. And if you weren't done, Mathieu, sorry if I cut you off. Feel free to jump back in again.
No, that's good for me. I mean, we have to continue our business, but we want to do it with prudence to make sure that we are going in the good way, and we don't have to come back and have another closure.
Excellent. I totally agree with you on that point. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to check out part 2 of 2 of my pandemic panel discussion with Canada's electrical distributors. Have a great day. Welcome to Direct and Current, an audio broadcast presented by Electrical Business Magazine. I'm Anthony Capkun. At the end of April 2020, to varying degrees, we were just over 1 month into a national lockdown due to COVID-19. Emergency health measures were enacted, people were asked to stay home, construction was severely curtailed in some jurisdictions, in others it ceased altogether. The economy was shutting down, yet electricians had been deemed essential in most jurisdictions, and by extension their distributors. So I gathered together a panel of electrical distributors from one coast to the other to ask them what pandemic-related changes, lessons learned, and the like will persist when the crisis eventually passes and we get to our new normal. This is part 2 of that discussion. In part 1, I asked my panelists how the pandemic was affecting their operations and their ability to serve their customers. With that, let's get to it. We've heard about some lessons learned, but what I'm curious to know now, when we sort of get to whatever our new normal is, what sort of changes do you think you see yourself keeping after this crisis passes? And Mathieu, to you first, please.
Yes, first I say that take nothing for granted. Since we bought the Electrimat 10 years ago, we were going from year-over-year growth to a larger year-over-year growth, and everything was doing good. And we were trying to get away from operation and to get a more strategic role. Guess what? We are back in the operation and details. So again, take nothing for granted. The other lessons, I think we were not really open regarding work from home. I'm not convinced about full-time work from home, but this crisis let us know that partial work from home is probably very positive. So we will be more open regarding part-time work from home.
Interesting. Roger, if I can put the same question to you. So what changes or learnings in the past days, coming days, might you see being executed full-time when we get to our new normal?
I think certainly one of the things I hope sticks, somebody that travels too much, I hope some of the travel gets reduced and we can do a lot more with Microsoft Teams. We've been able to our global executive team of 10 people has been able to meet weekly at various times of the day and night quite easily, and that saves me a flight a month to Europe. So I hope some of that certainly lasts, long beyond the pandemic, and for a lot of good reasons, whether it be personal health and well-being, or just the environmental footprint it leaves behind as people fly around the world for 2 and 3 day meetings. It's certainly be good if we could reduce that. The other is, as we've already heard, is the working from home. Certainly, we fill buildings full of people. In a lot of cases, have pretty regimented work hours, and we've proven, especially with a lot of the folks we have working for us, having families at home, now having schooling at home with those that have school-age children. We've been able to be fairly flexible on hours of work, and honestly, it's hard to tell, but honestly, I think we're getting the productivity we need to take that beyond just this time in history. So certainly, our customers still need people in the buildings and people to come visit them once that becomes acceptable and safe again. But there are components of our business, especially the back office, where a lot of that could be done. And our office is resized to accommodate that, and certainly maybe some hours of operation be accommodating to more people, make it more enticing for folks to do their job in that way.
Well, if I could put that same question to you, Tim MacDonald, when we get to our new normal, what will ideal supply look like?
Well, I think what we've learned in having WebEx meetings, even internally and externally, I fly to our head office in Montreal once a quarter, which Roger won't have much pity for. But even that will change because the last couple of meetings that we've had have been WebEx meetings, and they've been very effective and certainly very cost effective. So I think whether it's internally, externally, being able to speak to a supplier who wants to have a update of some kind, who might feel normally compelled to drive out to Listowel, Zoom can be a great tool for that. So that's one of the things. The other thing that has been mentioned earlier by a couple of people is the whole idea of working from home, and we weren't really adopters of that over the years. And I remember when it first came to kind of become a thing that people were doing, I remember my dad saying, well, I sure hope we never are so stupid as to do something like that. And is to have people work from home. I think we all probably had visions of someone working from home in their bedroom slippers and with their cat on their lap. And now we know, I know myself, I work from home 3 days a week, and those are as intense, if not more intense days than being in the office here in Listowel, because of there's the ability to be able to walk, stretch my legs, see other people I work with, have short conversations at a safe distance, of course. So the other thing is, I have a file on my desk that we were running around office reorganization, and we were running out of room here. And I had all sorts of plans of what wall to knock out and how to reorganize things. I easily don't need to do that now for 2 or 3 years, because I know we can accommodate that with people coming and going, and very effectively. So those are things that I believe will be long lasting after the pandemic worries pass.
Interesting. Tend to hear a lot of the entertaining working from home. Greg, let me put that question to you then. How do you see things at Bartle and Gibson when we reach our new normal?
Well, I think, like most everybody has touched on right now, I think the forms of communication will be a little bit different. I travel a lot as well, and I think that will change going forward. I think the opportunities for us to meet differently, over the last month and a bit, I think most of us have had the opportunities to use so many different platforms for communication, whether it was Zoom, whether it was today GoToWebinar, WebEx, Microsoft Teams. There's so many different options. And I see that communication more and more today from our supplier partners. We've been meeting with them differently than we have been in the past, and quite honestly, more frequently as well. When you take the geography of this country from coast to coast, it's vast. And to have people from a national perspective have time to travel to every nook and cranny of this country is difficult. And I think now they realize that they've been doing this a hell of a lot more effectively using the different forms of communication. And I think on the other side with communication, not only internally in our own business, but externally, is the frequency. We've had, internally in our own organization, we've communicated, I think, a little bit more effectively to our employees over the last couple of months. And, certain things that we may have taken for granted in regards to how the messages were getting out, and what messages that we were putting out, how they were delivered and when they were delivered. We've changed the frequency of when they were delivered, and I think the effectiveness as well. I think people are a little bit more engaged from a receiving perspective. They see an email coming through or they see a message coming through. They want to open it because they want to know what's changed. I think another thing that will change, I think, going forward is, the physical distancing. Some of those measures will be in place for quite a long period of time. So how that has changed, again, our day-to-day operations from a counter perspective, I think that's going to be the new norm. Whether they're plexiglass shields that we've installed or have been installing within our counters, I don't think they're going to go away. We're not going to take those away. The zones that we've created to safe zones, I don't think we're going to change that. as people all the way around the world, I don't think, the physical distancing is here and it's here to stay. Handshakes may be a thing of the past. We don't know at this point in time, but they're the main things that will stick with us.
Interesting. Good point. What replaces the handshake in the coming days? Now, Michael, if I could put the question to you. So when we reach our new normal, what does Wesco look like?
What have we learned so far is really be prepared for the unexpected, and it is really nobody could ever expect here what happened to us, what happened to an entire industry, and listening to everybody here, I guess the toughest job here when this is all over, or the toughest business is if you're running an airline company here, because there might be just here by the pandemic that we're currently living through, half of the business might be gone. But what I really appreciated here is that we had the plan B, and actually that came more out of the US here for all the plans that were established here regarding hurricanes, regarding whatever natural disasters. So we were pretty fast and able here to get to whatever you want to call that new normal. And for a change, people start appreciating IT and not complaining about IT, because our IT teams have done a tremendous job here and make the entire company literally from one day to the other being able to work from home, to able to work remotely, and just still functioning here with it's really working remotely, working from home. Wesco was traditionally, and I heard that a little bit through here, what the other colleagues said here, was traditionally a bit reserved to the concept of working from home. But the current situation where we are forced into that concept clearly shows the benefit, and actually the higher productivity of the team. You want to reward your people for a certain outcome and not for an amount of time being present in an office. So that's definitely a big change, and something that is going to be there to stay here for after the pandemic. How are we going to work, and how are we? And that was also said earlier here, related to e-commerce. To our websites have never been that busy, and a lot of customers have changed their approach towards working. And towards how do they run their job sites as well. So which is good. Yeah, that ordering via an app, being independent from opening hours, that all adds value for our customers, and it adds value to us ourselves, to our own productivity.
Interesting. I'll put the same question now to you, Elaine. We know at least one instance with Amy Carter and the Amy masks, that if you let someone work from home, they start making PPE for everyone. So tell me, once we reach our new normal, what practices that you're employing now you might see some form of continuation in the future?
Just carrying on to the sentiment so far about a more openness to maybe a remote workplace than we've seen before. I don't know that at Gerrie we're ready to full force keep that in place, because one of the things that I feel we can't forget is some of that sharing of ideas, and just being in the same room with somebody and hearing how they're dealing with an application or a situation, or somebody being able to ask very quickly a question, hey, what would you do in this case? Or, what about this product? Or those sorts of things that are a little more informal, that you wouldn't necessarily just have a Skype meeting on. So I think maintaining some form of balance to make sure that great opportunity for collaboration casually can continue. So finding some kind of blend to be able to accommodate both, because I do believe that, yes, you could probably get more work done by head down, just working away and not taking a moment to connect with the people around you. But there is tremendous value in a lot of that communication and that building of a relationship to share ideas. So I think it's important that whatever happens when we come through this first wave of the pandemic, that we're keeping a good balance on that and have a good plan for allowing for remote workplace while also not missing out on those great opportunities of human interaction physically. But one of the things that I think we'll also see is a greater embracing of our web strategy by all our people, because I think we certainly had some people that were concerned they were going to lose their job if they pushed the web and e-commerce to our customers. And I think everyone is experiencing great, tremendous movement to web. And our employers are saying, wow, that it certainly didn't take my job away. I still have a great value in this process. So I think it's taken a bit of the fear away from our people, not only for job security, but also they've had to very quickly become experts on our web. And so they're much more comfortable than they ever were. So they're talking to customers about the web and how to sign up and how to use the tools on it, or how to look up products or access delivery information, etc. So they're becoming quite good experts on it. So we're going to absolutely make sure we're continuing to leverage that as we get through this. So I do see certainly a shift in a positive way for that in our people embracing the web a little more. And certainly our people being more tech savvy than they were in February or January of 2020 today. You know, they all seem to be able to talk the lingo of video conferencing and e-commerce and web and tools that are inside all those technologies. So they're all much more savvy than they were. So that's a good thing, and we'll just keep pushing more and more technology to them, because I think they're realizing out of necessity they had to grab onto it, and it wasn't that bad, and they were able to use it quite well and effectively. So I see some really good things coming out of this this pandemic, this crisis, that we'll hopefully leverage and just continue to grow with it.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at definitely continued investments in our IT and our web fronts. Now, Tim Horsman, if I could put that same question to you, as the crisis is passing and we have our lessons learned under our belts, what may change at E.B. Horsman and Son?
So it's going to be really interesting to see what sticks, and then what kind of is the things that we leave behind us through this. E.B. Horsman is our 120th anniversary this year, so we've been through a few things in our history, from the Spanish flu and depressions and whatnot. And it occurs to me that handshaking and bowing and all our cultural norms stuck around post Spanish flu. So and SARS and a few other pandemics, maybe at a smaller scale. But people adapt. I like a lot of what we're hearing right now. The remote worker strategies, I mean, man, we were calcified in our thinking, and that has totally changed. I don't know that we need to be careful that the pendulum doesn't swing too far in a moment of crisis, that we find that healthy balance. But that remote worker strategy, I mean, from the perspective of work-life balance, climate change, all the things that were talked about, expense management, I'm interested. I mean, if we could do things with 10% less footprint, what would we do with that? How would we redeploy that investment? The other piece that just occurs to me as we're going through this is just the importance of the distribution channel overall. The last mile experience to the customer, our ability to pivot and support customer services in an agile way, whether it's that curbside pickup. I don't know what form will stick, but we're getting tremendously positive feedback in a variety of iterations. Project staging, all these things, like customers they're not canceling orders, they're delaying some projects right now. Well, now they need help, and so that's where the channel is stepping up, and that's exciting to kind of walk through and learn about there's no question we've had to be really compassionate in our credit process and working with our customers. And again, that's a place where distributors really shine, as we've got personal relationships and we sit down and we talk things through and try to be, reasonable on both ends, and knowing that we got to pay our bills. But some of our contractors and OEMs and users need our help right now. So we're trying to manage our way through that. I totally agree. The digitalization is accelerated, but we need to find a healthy balance between that digital customer experience and the bricks and mortar and the value-added services, supply chain optimization. We've had a tremendous amount of feedback from our customers that say, like, turn off the tap. We don't want another webinar. We don't want another email. How about like pick up a phone and call me, or personalize the communication in some meaningful way and connect with me. And so the human element is coming back out. So again, the pendulum, where does it kind of come back to? I hope some of that sticks. It's super exciting. That's the entrepreneurial side of me. Once you get all the noise and negative of the things you can't control, then you kind of pivot to what's in our business realm that we can control. And that's where I look down the road and say, who do we want to become? What sticks?
Cliff, I will give you the last word, but second to last, Jason, if you could weigh in on when we get to our new normal, what things may have changed, what might you be keeping?
I think the group did a great job summarizing everything. We're certainly in line with finding that balance, to Elaine's point, in the remote work strategy versus that maintaining that intimate part of our business that really identifies our market and the connections we have with our customers. For us, we're not in that retail space. We've got long-term relationships with our customers, and I think through all of this over the last 5 or 6 weeks, it's really reinforced the importance of that personal connection and seeing people's faces. Over all of that, I think it's really opened my eyes up anyway to the importance of maintaining an optimistic approach as you're leading a group through this. Even as difficult as this can be to manage at times, as tricky as things are right now in the industry, there are opportunities out there, and I think the group did a great job summarizing what some of those are. And I think on the other end of this, the companies who are taking that approach and looking at those opportunities are going to strengthen, and I think the industry will as well. One of the things that we've noticed through all of this, it really identifies the leaders in our business and the folks that can handle this type of a situation. Not everyone's wired to handle it, and I think your natural instincts really kick in when there's this much uncertainty and unknowns. But it really has identified those folks who are wired in such a way that can handle this type of an environment. And really just there are folks out there that really dig in and are thriving in this type of an environment. I think it's important that all of our organizations, we identify those folks and know that we can rely on them, as we kind of move forward and make them part of the teams that really help to design what we're doing to get through this type of stuff.
Please, when we get to our new normal, Cliff, tell me what will Franklin Empire look like then?
I don't know that we're really looking at a single new normal. I think there's a new normal for the balance of this year, and probably another new normal next year once there's a vaccine available and immunity in the population. Anyway, looking at the balance of this year, luckily or thankfully, many of our staff who are working from home can't wait to get back to the office. It's not for everybody. I think a lot of people struggle with it. They miss the camaraderie. They miss all the activity going on, and most really do want to get back as soon as possible. And I am thankful for that, because I still need a little convincing. We've managed to keep up with everything with the reduced business going on, but when everything comes back and we're on full cylinders again, I need convincing that we can really manage that with significant number of people working from home. So I think we're more open-minded to it than ever before. I think the biggest question mark I have is all of our collective outside sales reps who have been sitting at home covering their customers by phone, by email, by video conference in some cases. What is their new norm going to look like? I think it'll be a long time before they're out taking their customers for lunch and bringing coffee and donuts and all of those traditional ways that they built relationships with customers in the past. Many of them are going to be very challenged going forward on how to develop those same quality relationships without this personal exposure that we're all used to. Because, you know, even as businesses reopen and things start to resemble some normalcy, I don't think we're going to be having our vendor reps into our buildings for quite a while. I don't think our customers want our people in their offices for quite a while. So the challenge is going to be great for many of our sales reps. And I don't have any answers today, but some will adapt, and I think some will struggle.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to check out part 1 of 2 of my pandemic panel discussion with Canada's electrical distributors. Have a great day.